this is gonna make some of you mad, but dragon riders make no sense. At least, not in the traditional way. It doesn't mean they can't work in your fantasy novel or your D&D game though. Because if your heart wants to fly on the leathery wings of an apex predator who is somehow also an industrial grade flamethrower, then I'm gonna show you exactly how to make it work, with world building methods pulled from real world evolutionary biology. And if you're a game master or a dungeon master, this is how to say yes to players who want to ride dragons without breaking your freaking game. What do this $2 billion movie franchise, the best-selling adult novel in 20 years, and one of the most popular D&D settings all have in common? Well, they're all built on a premise that is frankly insane. Because if dragons existed, the idea of humans riding them like horses is patently ridiculous. So why are dragon riders so broken? Well, in the real world, there's a checklist for ideal animal mounts and companions. It's best if they're a herbivore, because they need fewer calories. They should provide food, labour, or generally be helpful. Friendly enough not to kill you is obviously a bonus when you're capturing it in the wild, and ideally it's slow enough to catch on foot. And of course, it needs to breed in captivity. Apologies to anyone who was hoping to ride giant pandas into battle. Unlike sharks, not even Barry White works on pandas. And that's not even all. If you want to breed selectively, short-lived animals are best, so you can select for ideal traits over multiple generations and get what you need quickly. And it needs to have strong family bonds or herd instincts. That way, when you control the leader, you control the herd. You may have noticed something about this list. Dragons meet none of these criteria. At least, not in their usual lore. They are rarely herbivores, and they tend to eat sheep by the flockful. And good luck catching one without dying. Enough said on that point. And as for breeding cycles, dragons live for centuries, and dragon eggs are rare. Not a great prospect for selective breeding unless you, and your descendants, descendants, are very patient indeed. As for herd instincts, dragons are territorial loners, traditionally unwilling to share space or their horde, so even if you make friends with one, the others will not follow you. In fact, as wild animals, dragons are a pretty terrible candidate for domestication. So is it hopeless? Well, not exactly. First, because it's your world and you can alter the law. Maybe your dragons are curious, friendly pack animals who breed like rabbits. In his recent book, I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons, Peter S. Beagle creates a world where dragons are so prolific they're considered household pests. This is totally an option. And this is where the species template on World Anvil comes in so handy. You can create dragon species in your world with all the prompts and ideas at your fingertips, and you can also create whole dragon species families, complete with content trees to show which types are friendly and which ones will eat you. And if you really need your dragon mounts to be fearsome predators who cannot be tamed, you're still not completely out of options. Because often, fantasy dragons are not wild animals, they're sapient species. Of course, that comes with its own complications. So let's get into it. There's a funny thing about that domestication checklist. Dragons aren't a good fit for us to domesticate, but we might be a good fit for them. The human-dragon relationship is not a partnership of equals. If they have human-like intelligence, they have all the evolutionary advantages. Longer life, bigger size, deadlier pointy bits. The works. With one meaningful exception that we'll get to shortly. In some lore, dragons gather human followers in a feudal relationship, but nobody's riding that dragon. For people to become dragon riders, there must be a reason, maybe a greater threat or goal, which makes you useful to the dragon. Perhaps an extra set of eyes, or limbs, or weapons, or spells. In this scenario, you are not a jockey. You're more like a super helpful monkey pet, or maybe a gunner and lookout on a World War I biplane. A biplane that eats people. In the Dragonlance setting, the greater threat is other dragons. And the extra weapons humans bring to the table are dragon lances. Because humans, with our big brains and opposable thumbs, we're very good at making things. And that's the evolutionary exception I mentioned earlier. Our technology and our tools. In the Dragon Riders of Pern series, the greater threat is the thread decimating whatever life it touches. And the technology humans bring, spoiler alert, was genetically engineering cute lizards into dragons in the first place. So, if you want to have riders of intelligent dragons, you need to answer two questions. What is the compelling threat or goal that encourages dragon-human cooperation? And what makes the human a good ally or partner? Is it a sense or ability the dragons don't have? Extra spell slots? Or some specific tech or tool? All of this is fun to think about, but what does it mean practically? Well, let's say you're a DM and your player wants to add a potentially game-breaking mount to your campaign. You've got three options, and 2 of them are even official rules. The easiest and most obvious option is to let them play something like the Drakewarden Ranger, introduced in Fitzban's Treasury of Dragons. Here's the trick. This isn't a meat dragon, it's a dragon spirit companion, and it scales with you from a small bitey familiar, level 3, to a flying foe-immolating mount, level 15. There are a lot of conveniences to using spirit dragons over meat dragons. Because it's a bound spirit, you can summon it like a genie, which means you're not trying to squeeze through a dungeon, being followed by a giant beast. And you're basically hand-rearing it, you can bypass the usual difficulties of why would a dragon let a human ride it? After all, you're basically its master and its mom. The main drawback in D&D terms is that your player can't actually ride their spirit dragon until they're a high level. Also, lean into the triangle of power on this one because it might break your game. The official rules state the spirit doesn't die, and it's a beast in combat. But this could be a go if your player is patient, you're playing a high-level campaign, and you're willing to throw some truly terrifying challenges at them. It could be the right option for an epic campaign or story. If you're looking for something more meat dragon-y, another model to check out is printed in the third-party class of the Game Master's Book of Legendary Dragons. This is tailor-made for players and heroes who want to ride an actual living dragon. In that, your dragon companion is a medium-sized, not fun-sized creature from the start. You get to ride it at level 3, after spending the gold to make a saddle so you don't fall off and die of embarrassment. And you get to ride it while flying at level 6. Because this is a real live meat dragon, it can actually be killed. And they have some limitations that don't apply to the spirit dragon, so this option is a little bit more balanced. But if your player wants to start riding their dragon at lower levels, and you're concerned about power scaling, this could be a good option. In world building terms, you will have to either establish that dragon riding is canon in your world, or just hand-wave an explanation for how people domesticated them. Another option is to have a unique player-dragon pairing in a world where this is not usual. Maybe they found an egg or something in the forest. Who knows? In that case, you will need to make sure that every NPC is legitimately terrified of them. People do not ride dragons. And, back to D&D 5e, if you want to be a rules lawyer, technically dragon riding is just an expansion of mounted combat. Any willing creature, at least one size larger than you, and has appropriate anatomy, can serve as a mount. It does go on to say specifically that intelligent creatures like a dragon act independently, so this leads us back to the important question, like, what's in it for the dragon? And actually, for a storyteller, this is a gift, because you can use this wiggle room to stop a dragon rider from breaking your story. After all, if it's an NPC, you determine the dragon's actions. It's also an amazing roleplay opportunity as your player tries to convince an actual freaking dragon to partner up. Maybe the player has information the dragon needs, or the crafting skill to make it barding armor to protect it in battle, or an insane amount of gold. This could be a critical moment for both characters. And you, as the GM, get to roleplay a dragon, which is kind of awesome. The rules for mounted combat are a bit sparse, but if you're playing 5e, I recommend your player take the mounted combatant feat and play a cavalier fighter subclass to gain the features Born to the Saddle, Warding Maneuver, and Ferocious Charge. Or just give them the magic item Saddle of the Cavalier, which conveys some of those benefits. Also, if you're homebrewing your own dragons in any RPG system, the World Anvil Community Stat Block Library is an amazing resource. You can copy-paste official SRD material or someone else's homebrew stat blocks as inspiration, and then just modify them as you like. Or you can build your own from scratch. Either way, if you want dragon riders, either for one hero or for a whole campaign or story, it is possible. It just takes a bit of cunning world building to get it right, and you'll have a whole lot of fun in the process. Of course, if your dragons are intelligent sapient species, not meat dragons, you also have an opportunity to think about their culture. In this video, the one on your screen, will revolutionize the way you think about cultures. Click it next, and I'll see you over there. Oh, and if you've already world-built dragon riders, let me know how you made it work. Tell me in the comments, and while you're down there, please like this video for more world building and game master advice in your feed. Then grab your hammer and go world build.